Dark Secrets of America's Founding Fathers, What History Didn't Tell You. And let's be real, history class can sometimes feel like one big boring textbook. Stick around to uncover the truth about these powerful men, and I'll reveal a final dark secret that will leave you questioning everything. Okay, let's be honest. When we think about the Founding Fathers, we often picture those stately portraits on the walls of museums, powdered wigs, stern expressions, maybe a quill pen in hand. But what if I told you that behind those stoic facades were men grappling with secrets, scandals, and controversies that would make even the juiciest gossip column blush? See, history has a funny way of smoothing over the rough edges, of airbrushing the less flattering details to fit a certain narrative. Because let's face it, who doesn't love a good secret? And trust me, the Founding Fathers had plenty. So buckle up, because things are about to get interesting. We're raised to think of the Founding Fathers as these untouchable figures, practically demigods in powdered wigs who descended from on high to bestow upon us the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And sure, they achieved incredible things, but they weren't deities, they were human beings. They made mistakes, they had regrets, they wrestled with inner demons, and they definitely had secrets. Imagine the pressure cooker of leading a revolution, of forging a new nation from the ashes of colonial rule. Is it any wonder that they sometimes stumbled, that they made choices that, looking back, seem morally questionable at best, downright reprehensible at worst? So let's put down the rose-tinted glasses and take a long, hard look at the men behind the myths. So what kind of secrets are we talking about here? Secrets that have been buried deep within the annals of history, hidden away from the public eye, and only recently uncovered by diligent historians and researchers. Well, for starters, let's talk about the Founding Fathers' personal lives. These men, often revered as paragons of virtue and wisdom, had their own share of personal dramas and controversies. Because behind those powdered wigs and breeches, there were love affairs, illegitimate children, and enough scandal to make even the most salacious reality show blush. Their private lives were filled with intrigue, passion, and sometimes heartbreak. Then there were the political machinations, the backroom deals, and the power struggles that shaped the very foundations of the United States government. These were not just simple debates. They were intense, often secretive negotiations that determined the future of a nation. These weren't always pretty, and they often involved compromises that would make your jaw drop. The decisions made in those rooms had far-reaching consequences, some of which are still felt today. The Founding Fathers weren't just idealistic philosophers, they were also businessmen, landowners, and yes, some of them were slave owners. Their wealth and status were often built on the backs of enslaved people, a dark and troubling aspect of their legacy. Their pursuit of liberty and equality often clashed with their own economic interests, leading to some morally murky territory. This contradiction between their ideals and their actions is a complex and often uncomfortable part of American history. By confronting these uncomfortable truths, we can gain a deeper, more nuanced understanding of American history. It's through this lens that we can appreciate the full scope of their contributions, as well as their flaws, and learn from the past to build a better future. Chapter 4. A Time of Upheaval. To really grasp the weight of these secrets, we need to rewind the clock back to the 18th century. Imagine a world on the cusp of revolution, a world where the very idea of democracy was considered radical and dangerous. The Founding Fathers were living in a time of immense upheaval, of war and uncertainty. They were under constant pressure, both from within and outside the newly formed nation. They were tasked with the Herculean task of creating a government from scratch, of balancing the competing interests of 13 colonies, all while navigating the treacherous waters of international relations. In this context, it's perhaps understandable why some secrets were kept, why certain truths were swept under the rug, but understandable doesn't necessarily mean excusable. Chapter 5. The Jefferson Paradox. Let's talk about Thomas Jefferson, shall we? The man who penned those immortal words, "All men are created equal." A champion of liberty, a visionary leader, and a slave owner. Yeah, you heard that right. Thomas Jefferson, the man who so eloquently articulated the ideals of freedom and equality, owned hundreds of slaves throughout his lifetime. He fathered children with Sally Hemings, a woman enslaved at his Monticello estate. It's a stark and unsettling contradiction, one that historians and Americans have grappled with for centuries. How could the man who wrote so passionately about liberty reconcile his beliefs with the brutal reality of slavery? It's a question with no easy answers, and it's a hypocrisy that continues to haunt us today as we grapple with the ongoing legacy of slavery and systemic racism. Chapter 6. Laws and Injustices. But Jefferson wasn't the only founding father with a complicated relationship with equality and justice. Many of these men, while advocating for liberty and self-governance, also supported laws and policies that directly contradicted those ideals. Take, for instance, the harsh criminal codes enacted during this era. These codes, often disproportionately enforced against the poor and marginalized, included punishments like public whippings, branding, and even death for relatively minor offenses. While they championed freedom of speech, they also oversaw the suppression of dissenting voices, particularly those critical of the government or its policies. And let's not forget the plight of indigenous peoples during this time. The truth is, the Founding Fathers' vision of liberty and equality was often limited, shaped by their own prejudices and the social hierarchies of their time. Chapter 7. Franklin and Hamilton, Money Matters. In this chapter, we will explore the intricate and often tumultuous world of early American finance, focusing on two pivotal figures who shaped the economic landscape of the fledgling nation. Now, let's delve into the world of finance, shall we? The financial foundations of the United States were built on a complex web of transactions, negotiations, and sometimes outright gambles. Because behind the lofty ideals of liberty and self-governance, there was a whole lot of wheeling and dealing going on. The pursuit of financial stability was as crucial as the fight for independence itself. And two figures who were right in the thick of it were Benjamin Franklin and Alexander Hamilton. These men were not just founding fathers, they were financial architects who laid the groundwork for America's economic future. Franklin, the ever-resourceful inventor and diplomat, was also a shrewd businessman with a knack for financial innovation. His ventures ranged from printing and publishing to land speculation and international trade. But some of his ventures, particularly those involving land speculation and trade, have raised eyebrows over the years. Franklin's business acumen was matched by his willingness to take risks, sometimes controversial ones. Hamilton, the ambitious first Secretary of the Treasury, was instrumental in establishing the nation's financial system. His vision for a strong central bank and a robust financial infrastructure was revolutionary. But his policies, while undeniably important, also benefited the wealthy elite at the expense of ordinary citizens. Hamilton's financial strategies often sparked fierce debates and left a lasting impact on the nation's economic policies. It's a reminder that the Founding Fathers, for all their talk of virtue and civic duty, were also driven by personal ambition and, yes, even greed. Their financial maneuvers were as much about personal gain as they were about national prosperity. Now, you might be wondering how these secrets and controversies stayed hidden for so long. Well, one word: media, or rather, the lack thereof. In the 18th century, news traveled slowly, often by word of mouth or through unreliable newspapers with limited reach. The Founding Fathers, savvy politicians that they were, understood the power of controlling the narrative. They cultivated relationships with printers and editors, using their influence to shape public opinion and downplay any scandals that threatened to tarnish their reputations. It's a reminder that the battle for control of information is as old as time itself, and that even in a democracy, the truth can be a fragile and elusive thing. It's easy to get caught up in the intrigue and scandal of the Founding Fathers' secrets, the whispered conversations behind closed doors, and the clandestine meetings that shaped a nation. But it's important to remember that behind every political decision, every heated debate, and every signed document, there were real human consequences. Every economic policy, every act of hypocrisy, and every promise of a better future had a direct impact on the lives of ordinary people. The decisions made by these men, often in the name of liberty and progress, were not just abstract ideas but tangible actions that affected countless lives. These actions had a profound impact on the lives of countless individuals, shaping their destinies in ways that were often beyond their control. Many of these individuals were denied the very freedoms they claimed to champion. Enslaved Africans, for instance, endured unimaginable cruelty and oppression, their forced labor fueling the economic engine of the newly formed nation. They were treated as property, their humanity stripped away, and their lives reduced to mere commodities. Their suffering was immense, and their contributions, though invaluable, were often overlooked in the grand narrative of American progress. Indigenous peoples, too, were driven from their lands, their cultures decimated, and their voices silenced. The expansion of the new nation came at a great cost to those who had lived on the land for generations. Their rich traditions and ways of life were systematically dismantled, leaving scars that would last for centuries. Ordinary citizens, caught in the crosshairs of political power struggles or economic downturns, often suffered the most. They faced hardships that were the direct result of decisions made far from their everyday lives. Economic policies that favored the wealthy and powerful often left the common people struggling to survive, their dreams of prosperity shattered. It's a sobering reminder that history is not just a collection of dates and names, but a tapestry woven from the lives and experiences of countless individuals. Each thread in this tapestry represents a story of struggle, resilience, and hope. These stories, though often overshadowed by the grand narratives of history, are what truly define our past and shape our understanding of the present. So, there you have it. The Founding Fathers, flawed, complex, and undeniably human. They were visionaries, revolutionaries, and yes, even hypocrites. They were products of their time, shaped by the prejudices and limitations of their era. But they were also architects of a nation founded on the radical idea that all men are created equal, that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. Their legacy is a complicated one, full of contradictions and uncomfortable truths. But by confronting their flaws, by acknowledging their humanity, we gain a deeper, more nuanced understanding of American history. So let's continue to learn from the past, to celebrate the triumphs while acknowledging the injustices, and to strive to create a future that lives up to the ideals of liberty and equality for all. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? From secret affairs to questionable economic policies, the Founding Fathers certainly knew how to keep things interesting. Which of these secrets surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching.